How much money does your business make?
We are currently in the 22 to 30 million range. We've been that way for several years. So this business is 3.5 decades old. So it grew from nothing to something substantial. And we've been in well over 9 figures over the course of the business. And it's still growing. So that's great.
Nice. So Ken, what do you do?
We're actually in the ditch digging business. We do everything that has to do with construction, everything from the ground down, anything having to do with the foundation. We fix and repair old foundations. We build new ones. We build buildings. We build houses. We're in construction chemicals. We invest in healthcare, just ancillary investments. And so it keeps us pretty busy.
Nice. So you've got a portfolio of construction companies now. List those traits that you have now. I'm curious on what all those traits are inside there.
When you say traits, you mean personality traits or you type companies?
Yeah, just the different companies. So there's a lot that goes in. I'm sure there's more than just a shovel that goes into digging a ditch. What are those business entities, or do you do plumbing inside those ditches? Do you do any kind of concrete? What are those different traits?
So if you have a homeowner that has a house that has a leaky basement or a crawl space, that can cause all kinds of problems. It can cause structural problems, financial problems. It can cause health problems, atmosphere problems, allergy problems, all those kinds of things. So our goal is to first fix the foundation from the outside and the inside, and then also to clean up the air so that they have a healthy place to live. And we do that with a series of air handlers, air cleaners. We do sump pump systems. We do emergency backup systems. We do drain tile inside and outside of the house, wall replacement, wall repair, crack repair, all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, it gives them a nice, safe, warm place that they can count on. And then they can finish it off into a playroom or a rec room or whatever they want to do down there and add value to the house at the same time. So
it's a one-stop kind of shop.
Yeah, there's a lot involved in it. It gets pretty hairy when you go up to somebody's house and you jack the whole house up, rip the basement out, and they have to walk across stilts for a few days until you get the walls put back in. But it's an interesting business. It's been something I've done since I was 15, and it's led into all kinds of other opportunities for me.
Yeah, I can see that. I've got a rental portfolio, and I feel like our older houses, every single time we do any kind of major renovations, we find so much more problems that we get into. So I can definitely relate to that for sure.
It's a situation where some people, you can see what's going on pretty plain. Other people, maybe they bought a house and it's half finished, and then they don't realize that for the first rain, it's been covered up. And so there's all kinds of challenges with that. But whether it's hidden problem or an obvious one, we try to do as best as we can just to make them understand what's at stake. Because if you have a car, I don't care how beautiful the car is, if the frame is all cracked up, you've got a big problem. And that's the same thing with houses. It's not the glamorous part. It's concrete block and it's concrete slabs and footers and that kind of thing. It's not couches and chairs and chandeliers and faucets, but it's still the most necessary part of the house. In fact, that's why a lot of disclosures, you'll see one of the first two or three things they even talk about on the disclosures: does the water have any water infiltration? And that's just because of that they realize how important that is.
For sure. So which company started first?
The basement waterproofing company started first. Like I said, I've been doing it since I was 15. I started in Cleveland, Ohio. And when it got to be time, do I go to college or what do I do? They came to me and said, because you've been working the front and the back house of the house in this business for 3 or 4 years, we want you to help us open franchises. So that's what I did. I lived out of a suitcase for 3 or 4 years and moved to Columbus temporarily, and then Cincinnati temporarily, and then Pittsburgh and Chicago, and opened up these businesses from scratch, and then decided I got tired out of the travel and all that. So I moved to Toledo in 1986 when I was 23. We opened up our company with 6 people, and I think we have just over 220 today. So it's been a hell of a ride.
220, you said?
Yeah.
Not that small. What was that? So started with the restoration, basement and crawl restoration company. What led to that second business, and what was that next arm for that?
Well, one of the things that I always promised the people here was I wanted to grow a collection of opportunities so that as I got revenue from these other opportunities, I would rely less on the revenue from this particular company and therefore allow other people to rise up. Okay. So the more they gave me, and we did that by building a system of entrepreneurship where we have a group of people, there's 15 or 20 of them at least, that kind of run their own departments like they're their own. And that entrepreneurial spirit allowed me then the freedom to rise above the whole thing and look back down and say, okay, what's our next opportunity? So then we got into home building in Missouri through a mutual friend that I knew that had found some ground out there. And then I was always intrigued about supplying big track builders like Hovnanian and Toll Brothers and those kind of people. So when the construction chemical opportunity came along, I jumped on that as well. And that did really well. It's a fire retardant scenario. And so that was being used all over the country in several parts of the world. And that went really well. And the office building and that kind of thing here locally was caused by our company growing so fast that we kept having to build more buildings and move into new buildings and newer and larger facilities. In fact, we're getting ready to do another one because I'm so good at figuring out how big I need a building to be. I'm on my fifth one. Yeah. And then that just naturally led into other office building investment properties around town that made sense. So yeah, the more I could do, the more I could have people around here grow and become better at what they did and more financially rewarded. So that works out well.
Giving them more responsibility, it sounds like.
Yeah, I've always believed that you can't do it all by yourself. And if you think you can, you're lying to yourself. You can go home and beat your chest and say, wow, I worked 70 hours in my business and I did this and I did that. And I yelled at these people and I fixed this and created that and motivated this and changed that. Good for you. Okay. I mean, you're going to be a hero, but you're going to kill yourself by the time you're 45. So I say, why not get some people around you, share this entrepreneurial conversation, share with them the newfound revenue that you don't have yet, and then get the hell out of their way and watch them go crazy because that's what happens. I hate to use the word empower because that's so overused, but when you give people the authority, the judgment, the power, and the opportunity to help figure out what the next growth spurt is in your company, they're going to come up with ideas and numbers that you think are crazy, but then they go do them. And so the only person that's holding your company back sometimes is the one looking in the mirror. Okay. And that's the biggest lesson I can tell any entrepreneur is drop your ego. Okay. Become as relevant to your company as you can, as quickly as you can. And I know a lot of people, they shudder when I say that. Oh my God, how can I be irrelevant to my company? I don't mean you're going to disappear and go play golf the rest of your life. What I'm saying is get out of the trenches, get out of the day to day and drive the vision of your company. Because the people that are there with you along for the ride, the entrepreneurial people that I'm speaking of, they're going to recognize that spirit and they're going to recognize that opportunity. They're going to say, wow, you know what? I think I can get what I want for myself with and through Ken's company. So I'm going to work for me first and Ken and the company second, which is fine because that rather selfish in a positive way, if you can use that word in a positive way, that attitude is perfect because now if everybody in your company is winning, you are going to win in the end for sure. So why not let them have that opportunity and get out of the way?
No, for sure. I can definitely attest to that. And it sounds like, too, that you've built this ecosystem of companies that feed off one another. In your early 20s, I can think back in my early 20s when I was starting a business, the last thing I was thinking of was creating multiple businesses that feed off each other. Where did that mindset come from? I'm thinking I need to meet payroll or stressing about where the money's going to come from or something like that. Where did that mindset come from to build on top of what you're currently doing and empower these other people?
It's what you vision for yourself and how you want to live. This is the biggest thing that I talk about. And if you wanted to know what my position was, I'm probably the chief visionary officer, if there is such a thing. And really all I do is I try to get to people and say, look, what do you want your life to look like? And clearly, what kind of pet do you want? Dog or a cat? What color? What would you name it? What kind of vacations do you like to take? Where are you going? How much do they cost? What kind of car do you want to drive? What kind of house do you want to live in? What kind of sports do you want to take on? Hobbies, sports, crafts, activities? what's your spiritual and your give back moment look like? If you had $100, how would you give it away? Time, talent, and treasure, all that. You really got to get into people's minds and say, what do you want your life to look like? Because I am wholly interested in helping you get there. Okay. Because if enough of us are doing that, then enough of us are going to win. So getting back to your question, I had a lot of really big things that I wanted to accomplish. I wanted to accomplish the freedom to travel. I wanted to accomplish raising a great family. I wanted to accomplish having some cars and some boats and just playing golf in great places. And I thought really big. I just drew big, beautiful things and I put them on the wall in front of me and I stared at them 2 or 3 times a day. Because what happens is, and I was talking with Tony Robbins' son, Jarek Robbins, about this particular thing. When you have something in front of you and you put it on the wall and you stare at it long enough, these little electrodes or electrons that are firing inside of your brain get closer and more rapid to the point where they become almost one conscious stream of thought. At that point, your brain thinks that it already owns that thing, okay? Whatever that thing is. So then it almost kicks your body into this involuntary like chase or pursuit of that thing. It increases your awareness, it increases your taking advantage of opportunities, and increases your desire to get out of bed and make things happen, increases your desire to continue to climb up in higher positions and more money because your brain wants to have that thing, whatever it is. And it's not all about physical things, it's about the memories you create with physical things. But that's really important. So I would say to anyone out there who's thinking, wow, how am I going to get out? How am I going to get to the next level? Start with yourself, you know, dream really big. And I mean, like, not everyone's going to go want to be a rap star or an influencer or have 15 houses and a mega yacht and McMansions. I get that. But figure out what your perfect, and I mean perfect life could look like. Draw that out, dream big, and then watch what happens.
And go after it. Lost my train of thought there. I'll edit that out. Oh, who did you learn this from at that or on those early stages? Who were you learning from?
I had 2 mentors. One was my father, who I call him imperfectly perfect because he demanded perfection in everything. And I'm talking about white walls, armor all, getting the wax out of the cracks of the cars.
Oh, yeah.
The windows had to be perfect when I was washing his car, shining his shoes, mowing the yard, planting bush, whatever. He demanded that it was absolutely perfect. And I appreciated that because at the end of the day, I loved the way it looked. Okay. I wasn't doing it for him. I was doing it for me, but I enjoyed seeing the finished products. And he started to live pretty good when we weren't poor, but we were pretty plain way back in the day until I was about 15, 16. Then he started living pretty well at that point. So there was some draw to that. The guy that I worked for though, since I was 15, he lived 10 lives. Okay. He's still alive, but he's lived a big, full life. And I got to help him do a lot of those things. I helped him buy his boats and his cars, and I helped him organize parties, and I helped him do a lot of things. And he was like a rock star. Okay. So those 2 people they didn't motivate me to go get those same things, but they opened my eyes to living at the effect of others. There's get busy living or get busy dying, as they say. There is, you can wait for life to happen to you, or you can happen to life, all those things. And so I was able to really open my eyes to, wow, I'm in control of what it looks like. After all, in the end, I'm in control of what my life looks like. So I'm going to make it as cool as I can.
I love that. If you had to start from scratch again, how would you go about it? And what businesses would you start?
That's crazy because when I was younger, we used to draw for our financial statements and our reports. We'd use like graph paper and pencils, and we would tape graph paper together. That's how, long ago that was. Now you can open a business with a pickup truck and a cell phone, and you can do everything: payroll, accounts receivable, accounts payable, ordering, all the inventory, everything. So it's a lot easier to open a business now than it ever has been, in my opinion. Okay. Having said that, the quickest way to wealth is to do what everybody else isn't willing to do. You go to your town, and I'll just give you an example. Go to Home Depot or go to Lowe's, go to the commercial desk where all the contractors order their stuff every single day. You'll see a board behind those guys, and you'll see a bunch of business cards on it, right? Businesses that are out there doing things. All you have to do is ask those guys, what's missing in this town? Like, we have too many painters, but not enough electricians. We have too many plumbers, but not enough welders. We have too many of this, but not enough that. What's really missing that should happen in this town that you guys think, God, if only there's such long lines and supply chain problems for this particular industry, right? Just ask them. They'll tell you what the town needs, and then go do it, because you're filling a hole that they know better than anybody, because they're the ones selling to all these contractors. They're basically selling to the whole industry, the whole community. And even homeowners themselves walk up to these people and say, hey, I can't find anyone to put up a fence. What do I do? Right? You're out of luck because there's only one guy doing it and he's a year behind. All you have to do is find what people aren't willing to do, plug yourself in. And before you say, maybe I don't want to be a plumber or whatever, I didn't want to be a ditch digger. Not at all. But I did it for a little while, and then I hired some ditch diggers, and by the way, I have the utmost respect for them because I've done it. I hired a bunch of them, and then I hired a bunch more, and then I hired a bunch more, and pretty soon I'm still in ditch digging business, but I'm not doing it anymore. So you have to remember that, and this is another controversial thing, okay? This is like the irrelevant egomaniac that I talked to you about earlier. This is another controversial thing. I don't think it's so important what you do for a living, to be honest with you, as it is how important it is what you do with what you do for a living. Okay. In other words, I can create a wonderful life being a ditch digger. Now, am I going to go to the Harvard parties on the East Coast of the United States? Probably not, but do I want to? Hell no. Okay. Yeah, you can do big things with any industry. I don't care if you're driving around porta-johns. Okay. There's an industry out there, there's money in it, and no one's doing it. So go take advantage of it and live the life that you want for yourself. Because at the end of the day, Dylan, nobody ever rolled up into my driveway and saw my house and saw everything that I've accomplished and said, wow, like, what degree do you have? Are you a doctor or what? No, I'm happy to tell them how I ground this life out. But yeah, living well is really the ultimate chase. It's the ultimate goal after all.
Yeah. It's not taught in our society. And I can't say it's not taught in our society. It's not taught in our education system growing up. We're given this life, or it's by our parents. We're given this life. We follow these strict rules. You fit in this box. You got to do this. You go to college, you get a degree, you take out debt, and then you retire when you're 65, 70. And that's the box that we're put in. And luckily, I figured that out in my early 20s that I didn't fit in that box. I didn't want that box. This is not what I want. Dropped out of college and just figured it out.
I'm not trying to tell these kids to go out and be a bunch of rebels. I'm not. But if you know you would be a good carpenter, don't listen to anybody else, including your parents, your teachers, your high school guidance counselors, your principals. If you think you would be a kick-ass carpenter, go do it, because you're going to make 150 grand in 3 years. Okay. And your life is yours. I'm not trying to tell you not to listen to your parents, but here's the problem that your parents have. Okay. Your parents think this, and I wrote this as an open letter on my website, kenrusk.com. I wrote an open letter to parents. I said, I get it. I'm a parent. I understand. You birthed your child, you diapered your child, you changed your child, you clothed your child, you fed your child, you sheltered your child. You gave them the knowledge that you think you could give them. And now somehow you think the only way you can walk this earth and say you're a good parent is if they have some expensive degree on the wall. That part has never been true in the history of raising kids. And raising kids goes back a long way. So don't put pressure on your kid to go get a degree in, Eastern European language translation when he would be a kick-ass carpenter running his own company. Don't do that, okay? You're only serving your own ego. So when you're at parties with your friends, you can say, oh, my son's going to whatever state. That's crazy. Are you trying to raise a successful child or a braggadocious for yourself, educated one? Get off that. Okay. There's 167 million people in the United States today. 77 million of them, and I looked it up, do something with their hands. Okay. So if we try to shove all 167 million of our future kids into college, right? Who's going to be out here doing these things that we need done? By the time you put your feet on the floor on your bed in the morning and get out of bed, to the time you go to your church or office or school, wherever you're going, you're walking across 10,000 blue collar jobs that are still viable today, and they're lucrative as all get out. So I would rather you drive me past your kid's house, okay, and say, look how well my son lives or my daughter lives, because they work hard and they pick the right industry and they save their money and they're fiscally responsible and they're giving back to the community. That is a successful person, not just one that you bragged went to something or other state. So that's like my soapbox, but that's really how I feel about it.
No, I agree. Something that's not touched on a lot as well is the fulfillment side of it and understanding what fulfillment is and doing, like you said, figuring out if you think you're going to be a good carpenter or you make things with your hands or whatever it is, that's going to bring you the most fulfillment, regardless of the money. The money will come. It's if you can find something that fulfills you, you'll go so much further and be so much happier in life.
You're exactly right. So I have a great example of that. Um, I was hiring a guy that I knew very well. He was going to do an outdoor kitchen made out of stone. And this guy did a lot of stone fences and gates around my house. And I was going to have him come and do the kitchen. He was a year backed up, 1 year backed up. He was in the middle of summer. He had work for half the next summer. So when he finally got there, he rolled up in his brand new pickup truck. He got out of his car. He had his jeans and his work boots on, had his Ozzy Osbourne t-shirt on. He's listening to rock and roll music, having his cup of coffee. And him and his people go to work. And they build this gorgeous outdoor kitchen, just beautiful. Okay. And at the end of the day, they get to stand back and look at that and go, wow, man, pretty cool, huh? I call it the stand back moment. Okay. Where you lean on your shovel and you go, look at what I did. Look at what I just created there. Now, the people living in some of his houses probably don't realize it because he's out there slinging mud and chopping rocks and building his kitchen. You probably have two people in there, maybe a dual income family, and they're knocking down 120,000 between the two of them, or maybe 160,000 between the two of them. And they're thinking, yeah, look at us and look at him. That guy makes 350 grand a year. Okay. Slinging mud. So you think those things are to be stigmatized. Be very careful because some of the nicest cars in your neighborhood are driven by blue collar entrepreneurs. All I'm saying is consider this especially when you're raising kids. If you think of some degrees and for the book Blue Collar Cash, I had to write, I had to research a lot of things. This is the craziest stat in the world, Dylan. 40% of kids are pushed into college not knowing where they're going. Crazy, dumb, inexpensive, wasteful. 25% of those kids eventually pick a degree and then they change it in the first 2 years. Another waste. But the worst one is only 33% of degree holders ever use their degree ever. So 66% of people that put all those 4 years in, studied all that information, paid all that money, are not using their degree. If that was a business, it would go out of business. It would be bankrupt. Okay. You couldn't have 66% of your customers unhappy, right? Or unfulfilled. So just be careful because I've seen two kids, one went to school, 40,000 a year. The other kid got a job. Okay. This kid, 160,000 a year later, or 4 years later, he's in debt up to his what's, and he's trying to find a job to pay that off. It'll take him 10 years to pay it off, which means he can't start saving his 401k or any of those other things. Well, the other guy, he got into a construction job. He's making 65, 70, 75 grand a year. Now he's making almost 100. 4 years later, he's making what, 300,000 in total? That's a $500,000 swing from one end to the other. So at least be cognizant of that before you make some of these life altering decisions.
Yeah, life altering, because getting into debt that much at that age, it could take you a lifetime to get out of that.
Yeah. When you consider investing alone, okay, let's just talk about that. If you truly follow the rule of 72 or the rule of sevens, where every 7 years your money doubles, you basically have 6 of those cycles to try to do that from the time you're 21 to the time you're 63, 42 years. Okay. You have 6 cycles of 7 years to try to double your money. If you miss the first one or the second one, you've only got 4 and you lose the greatest double of all, which is the last one. That's where your money goes from 600,000 to 1.2 million in that 7 year period of time. So if you're trying to pay off all this school debt and you're wasting your 20s all the way up to where you're 30, you've just missed 1.5 of those 6 cycles. You can't recover from that unless you start over saving way more than everybody else has to. So these things aren't taught in school. It drives me up a wall that these kids don't learn these things, because if they did, we'd never have a conversation about Social Security ever again in our lifetime. Okay. And for even the word Social Security it's a misleading scam, because no one's secure on Social Security, believe me. They may be getting by or they may be, but they're not living. So we have to get away from some of these ancillary programs that aren't working anymore and aren't going to be there for us when we retire anyway. But just teach kids how to be smart. You'll never have to worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah, they've definitely failed on the financial literacy side in school. So, what's your take on investing? I'd love to know for your younger generation, like how you would start or your take on it then. And then also, I'm going to ask you about how now. So, what's your take for the younger generation, how to get going and get started on that end?
This is real easy. So you walk into an interview and someone says, I'm going to pay you 50 grand a year. Okay. I want you to look that person back in the face and say, thank you for paying me $47,000 a year. And they're going to say, but it's 50. Yeah, I know. But the first 3,000, I'm going to put $60 a week, which is 3,300 a year. I'm going to put that into a 401k. Okay. From the time I'm 21 to the time I'm 31, I can stop saving. If I save for 10 years, I'm going to save $33,000. Okay. By the time I'm done with that 10-year period of time, I can literally stop saving. And if I sit on that money till I'm 63, I'm going to have probably 1.1, 1.2 million in my account. Okay. Now, the 47,000, you're getting paid 50, but the first 3, you never had it. You couldn't spend it. You can't rely on it because you never held it in your hand. You're not missing it. When someone tells you they're going to pay you 50, bank on 47, budget your life on 47 and let the rest of it go, because I'm paying $1.25 for every buck you save. I should say a quarter on top of the dollar you save. So for you to try to save your own money, $1 after taxes is 75 cents. If you save it with a 401k, $1 is $1.25. You're making 50% on your money every Friday. You know what I'm saying? So why would you try to do it on your own? Okay. The only other thing I would tell you is, and this goes along with what I just said, savings should be, you hear these financial guys, they talk about it, pay yourself first. 100% correct. Okay. Pay yourself first, put some money aside for charity second, and then live your life the rest of it, because there's power in doing that and doing it early. Now, how do I invest now? You got to remember that I'm 60 years old now, and I can't even believe that I'm saying that because life goes by so fast. But now I'm doing everything. When you're younger, your risk portfolio is mostly high risk, some medium, and some low. But when you get older, that flips. So you get away from the high risk and the mediums and you go to the low, but the steady income generating stuff. So that doesn't mean because I still invest in other things. I believe it or not, I invest in bourbon. I invest in cars. I invest in proactive healthcare, these new systems that are coming online, like stem cells and biologics and exosomes and peptides and all that kind of stuff, and the companies behind them. So emerging healthcare, proactive healthcare is going to be a nuclear bomb going forward. So I would invite everyone to take a look at that, because if you can inject your knee and not have to have surgery and not the downtime, it's crazy what these things are doing. So I'm investing in some of those types of things, but that's the money that I can afford to lose if it's not my milk money, as they say. So yeah, I do some real steady stuff with the bulk of it, and then I try to catch a few flyers here and there, but that's basically how I do it.
Yeah. So for your flyers, is that kind of like angel investing on those companies?
Yeah, exactly.
I got
And
you.
so far, so good. Cross your fingers.
Yeah. Is this personal relationships you built up, or is this used platforms that go through it?
I like to invest in things that I know. Oh, this shoulder has a whole lot of stem cells in it and it works. And I can golf I've had tears, I've had problems, I've had tendonitis, I've had other kinds of things, and it's healing it. It's doing very well. And I've done it multiple times over the past 4 or 5 years. And when I do it, I research the people and the companies behind these things, and then I jump in after that. So you don't want to just hear a rumor in a parking lot and throw your money into it. But
Yeah.
if you think something it has legs going forward in the bigger picture, like proactive healthcare versus reactive healthcare, then look at it for a while, find the right companies, and then jump in.
I like that. Other than, of course, angel investing, what's been your favorite investment vehicle?
I like things that can scale. One of the problems with my particular company is I'm landlocked by counties. I have a franchise territory. I wanted things that I could invest in that could go crazy. It could be sold in Dubai or London or United States or whatever. So the chemical company that we had, that was the winner, because you could you could paint houses and fire retardant structures and whatever anywhere. And we had customers all over the world. So yeah, that one to me, I think it's almost like the internet. You put something on the internet, it goes viral. Okay. If you're looking to hit some home runs, take some money, try to find a viral thing. And that particular thing was this, because there were no restrictions. There was no landlock. We could sell it in every country around the world. And we ended up doing a lot of that, and it worked out pretty well.
Now, did you sell that company? Do you still own it?
No, it's gone. We did finally sell it. Whenever you have a company like that's making a lot of money and things are going well, you don't own it for very long, because there's people that come knocking on your door and say, okay, all right, boys, step aside. Time for the big boys to take this over. And that's pretty much what happened.
Yep. And that's you sell before that happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole nother sector of people who are just good at taking companies from here to there. And that's why they do
Well,
that.
it's especially when they have platforms. If you could sell, think about it. If you're selling cheese and all of a sudden McDonald's comes calling, they're going to sell a hell of a lot more cheese than you could ever try to sell to wherever you're going. So it's a bad example, but it paints a pretty good picture that if you lay your product over someone else's gigantic platform, it's going to go crazy. And that's what they did when they bought it from us.
Yeah. It's very rare to see a founder and a household name company. It usually that's two different things.
Right. Yeah.
So Ken, tell me about this new book you got coming out.
Well, Blue Collar Cash was the book that I wrote first. And that one was a book there was 3 readers. There was someone that's 15 to 25 years old, just starting out. I want them to learn the vision. How do I see my life for what it will be for me? The second reader was someone who already went to college, but maybe didn't want to. I had a guy call me and say, I'm on the 15th floor in some cubicle selling medical supplies. I can't stand it. I read your book. I'm quitting my job to go back to being a plumber's assistant, which I was going through college, and I loved it. And he did. And he started his own company. Now he's doing great and he's really happy. The third reader was a surprise, but it was a good one. Business owners who want to create the kind of growth that I had in my company, they're book clubbing the book. They're buying between 5 and 20 copies, and they're having all their staff read them, 1 chapter a week, and then they talk about it to create that entrepreneurial spirit. So this was the kind of the end user the Blue Collar Cash was written for. The new book is going to be called Cool Boss, and how to be one, how to find one, how to change one. And that's where, in this world now, If you're not working on your culture in your company, you're going to get run over. Okay. So many people are investing in the culture that makes it a cool place to work. If you can't create a cool place to work, you're going to lose a lot of people because culture was never something people spend a lot of time on. I've been working on culture for 36 years only because I had to, because my business is ditch digging. It's such a hard job. I had to make it cool. So I've been doing this forever. Now people are just waking up and going, wow, I can't find anyone to work and no one stays. What's wrong with me? It's the culture of your business. People don't quit companies, they quit people.
Mm.
So you better find a way to make your office cool. And so that's what this book is all about. And it's not heady, it's not theoretical. I never went to college. I don't have any letters after my name. I have no formal training. It's all simple plug and play stuff that you can do tomorrow morning to improve your office culture and make people want to hang out.
Can you give us one of those tips that you mentioned in the books?
These big glass boards, and they're huge. They're like 4x8. They're heavy as hell, and they mount to the wall. And then we have these markers. They're neon markers like you'd see in front of a Mexican restaurant in the margarita special of the day. So we have these markers and we give them to people. And when they have a goal, they have to write it on that board. And I crystal clearly, not just I want to be taller or I want to learn Spanish or I want to dunk a basketball. Not that. It's, for example, I'll give you one. I want to go to Scotland. It's going to cost me $4,000. Okay. I'm going to save $40 a week. I'm going to go to Scotland 2 years from today. Today is X amount of date. I went to the bookkeeper. I told her to pull $40 a week out of my paycheck. I signed the beginning of it. I signed the end, beginning date, end date. And I know for sure that I'm going to Scotland 2 years from today. Okay. It's not if, it's not maybe. I'm going to Scotland 2 years from today. Those 2 years will fly by faster than you can blink an eye. Believe me. Okay, I don't know how old you are, but I'm sure you can't remember what happened to you 3 years ago. So the point is these goals are out there for everyone to see. One of the most important things of a goal is to commit to it, to make it real clear, to build a pathway for it, to make it automatic and certain, and then to share it with other people. So we have these boards mounted between the two bathrooms. So people see these goals at many times a day. And I might see your goal up there and then I run into the hallway and say, hey man, you're halfway to buying your new car. Well done. Keep going. You're almost there. So there's this encouragement thing going on because you stumble, you fall, you miss a few steps here and there, and then you need people to help keep you going. So that's just one quick and easy way. And we even tell you in the book where to buy the boards, where to buy the markers, how to hang them up. It's just simple stuff. But people that read these books on leadership, it's all this super theoretical PhD. And you close the book and you go, okay, great. I'm motivated, but I don't know what the hell to do. What do I do? So all these things are simple step type things that you can do to make your place better.
I like that a lot. That's one, it's setting a goal for the future. Two, it's putting an action plan with that goal. So on top of that, they're vested now in that, on top of what they're doing in that role. That's really good.
Well, I will tell you this. A goal without a path that clearly built is nothing more than a hope, a wish, or a dream.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's nothing wrong with hopes, wishes, or dreams, but they never come to fruition until somebody takes an action. Okay. You can hope all you want that someday you go to Scotland, but if you don't start putting some parts and pieces in play here, it ain't never going to happen unless someone just comes and scoops you up and kidnaps you and takes you on a plane to Scotland. Yeah, you got to get going. You got to make these things happen. And what's really funny is I'll stand in front of a chamber of commerce and I'll have somebody raise their hand, like, who wants to go to Italy? Okay. And I'll bring them up. I'll take them through that exercise and they go back to their chair and they're like, I'm going to Italy in 2 years or 3 years or whatever it might be. And the rest of the people look around. Is it really that simple? Yeah, it's really that simple. The only difference is you're not doing it. So it's part of holding yourself accountable to dream and then put that dream into action.
Everybody has great ideas, but it doesn't happen until you actually put it into action. I like that.
That's that.
What do you want to leave the listeners with today, Ken?
You know, I want to plug one thing. So my life has been really good. I've been very blessed, very fortunate, very grateful. Okay. I wrote this book not to create wealth for myself because I've already done that. It's my turn to now turn around and give back to the entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are following me. Okay. And it's incumbent upon all of us to do that, I think. So I built this $179 course. Okay. And trust me, it cost me way more than $179 to film all this stuff. And you get a free book with it. And it's 8 sessions. It's 45 minutes a session. You can get it done in a weekend or a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And it helps you to build the puzzle that is your life, one piece at a time. So if you take this, because I was tired of people telling me all these books that they read, but yet they never took any action from any of them. So I didn't want my book to be shelf help, as people call it. I wanted it to be self-help. I wanted it to really work. So I built this course. It's really good. It's really cool. It came out great. And it's on my website at kenrusk.com. Take it. I guarantee you, because I guarantee you, the next day you will be thinking differently about the future of your life. And you will take steps to make that happen for yourself and probably be pretty happy about it for doing it.
Love it. Ken, I appreciate you coming on today, man.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a great conversation. I appreciate you having me.
Hey, if you're still listening, hopefully you got some value out of this or amusement. Either way, I really appreciate you for listening. My goal with this podcast is to build something of value while also showing others that it's possible to do the same. And what I mean by that is I'm not perfect at this. I fumble, I stutter, and I just want to show that it's okay. If you've been putting something off, this is me telling you to go for it. So I need your help in growing this, and there's 2 main ways a podcast grows. 1 is through ratings and reviews, and 2 is through word of mouth. So I can only do it with your help. If you can leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as post this to your social, it doesn't grow without you. Thank you. Talk to you all next week.